So couples usually reach out because they're either at the beginning of their planning process. So they Google things. It's really, really easy to fall down the rabbit hole of Google when you start looking for photographers, officiants, planners, DJs, venues, stuff like that. So they get lost. People say, well, can you just give me a price? And I say, you know what? I can't, because every wedding is so unique and so different now. And I always use the analogy that if you want to ride in on a horse, that's going to be extra. You really, really have to be organized. You know what? Everything looks beautiful in Pinterest. Everything looks beautiful in TikTok. Those are award-winning weddings. They're not going to show the $15,000 budget backyard weddings.
So on today's episode, we have Nathalie from BlackTie Wedding and Event Planning. You're one of the few really good wedding planners in the area. I've seen you work pretty much everywhere in Northern Ontario, and so it was a no-brainer to ask you to be on the podcast, so thank you very much for showing up.
I'm so happy to be here. This is very exciting. Something that's actually wedding related in the industry. I think it's a fantastic idea, so kudos to you guys for doing this. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Meet the magic behind many of Sudbury and area's dream weddings from BlackTie Wedding and Event Planning. With Nathalie and Stevie's expertise and passion, your dream Northern Ontario wedding becomes reality. From intimate lakeside ceremonies to grand starlet celebrations, they cater to every desire. Crafting lasting memories, they ensure every detail reflects your unique love story. Visit www.blacktieweddings&events.ca to start your planning journey with the area's best.
So if a couple were to approach you, like just maybe walk us through that initial phone call and that kind of like a process of what you do, and maybe explain a little bit what you have to offer.
So couples usually reach out because they're either at the beginning of their planning process. And I tell my couples all the time, it's hard because they've never done this before. They've never got married before. And I tell them I've done it, 80 times, not myself personally, but I've done 80 weddings or more. So they Google things, and it's really, really easy to fall down the rabbit hole of Google when you start looking for photographers, officiants, planners, DJs, venues, stuff like that. So they get lost. It's just a muddled mess for them. So they reach out to me, essentially starting out looking for help. They just need help, guidance. So when they call me, or usually it's through my website or through text or email. So I'll say, you know what, let's sit down for an informal Zoom chat or in-person chat. Nothing, there's no pressure, there's nothing. I just want to know what your vision is. What are you looking to do? So I have standard questions that I ask just to get to know the couple and see exactly what it is that they're looking for. So we have a chat and I ask them things, because I want to get to know them too. You have to make sure there's a connection there. So how did you get engaged? Who asked? Have you traveled anywhere before? If you were to shop for a completely new wardrobe, what stores would you go to? If you were to completely refurnish your home, what furniture stores would you go to? I want to get a sense of their style. Ask them if there's any vendors that they've looked at so far or that they've booked or that they've heard of. Social media is a fabulous thing, and a lot of people get their choices from social media. So after that, it's usually about an hour, hour and a half, that first meeting that I have with them. I then create a quote for them based on what their wishes are. People say, well, can you just give me a price? And I say, you know what? I can't, because every wedding is so unique and so different now. And I always use the analogy that if you want to ride in on a horse, that's going to be extra. I'm sorry. There's no bones about it, So if you have a 400 count guest list, I'm going to need to bring in my staff. So that's extra. So I get to know an idea of what it is they're looking for. So then after we have that conversation and I go through all those questions and I kind of gauge, I do have a scale that I work with. So I then give them a quote. So a lot of people say, well, give me a quote for both full wedding planning and month of, because it has to fit in their budget, obviously. So I send them both quotes out, and then if they accept the quote, that generates a contract, and then we kind of go from there. So, and it really gives us a chance to kind of see, they see where I'm coming from, I see where they're coming from, and it's kind of the best way to do things instead of saying, yeah, I'll take you on right away. Yeah, I have that date available. Let's sign something up, because you know what? We're humans. So there could be, if your wedding is not something that I think we can jive with, or if your wedding is a complete DIY, which a lot of brides nowadays, they want that. They want to get that involved in their wedding. I might not be the right fit for you. So let's discuss that. Let's have those conversations.
If I was calling you and I had no idea what I wanted, I just wanted someone to take care of the whole thing, top to bottom. I don't want to have to stress about it. I just want you to tell me where to be, when to be, and that kind of stuff. Is that possible through your services?
Definitely. That would be more of like a full wedding planning package. So, and again, and I have the complete opposite sometimes where the brides say, well, I don't know if I want a wedding planner because I want to plan my wedding. You still do plan your wedding. I do not make any decisions on my own for your wedding. I talk with you. I present you options. So that way we go through those options and then we decide who's the best fit for you. And the options I give you are based on a number of things: your budget, your vision, your aesthetic. Like what do you want? What's your guest's main priority for this wedding? What's your main priority for this wedding? So that way I can tailor the suggestions I give them to all that different criteria. So, and if it's something that, you just plan it all, I just want to show up, which unfortunately is some of the guys are kind of like, yeah, just.
I'll vouch for that.
Exactly. So I'll just let her choose or you guys choose or whatever. So, I can do that as well. So because we have such a great wedding community here in Sudbury, and having worked with pretty much everybody in the community, who's going to fit with who and who's going to vibe with who, and price-wise, who's going to fit with that couple and their budget and their vision. So yeah, it's definitely something we can do. You do have to be involved somewhat because you have to make decisions, unfortunately. But I guide you and I give you those suggestions. And I have a lot of knowledge. So I can tell you, after we talked about this a little bit more, I don't think that one's the best suit for you. I would suggest we go with this one. And you can say no. It's okay to say no. No, I want to go with this. Okay, great. Let's do that then. So really, you still have to work together. Because a lot of couples really don't know where to go or where to look. Or, they'll talk to their friends. Oh, my friend had this person. They were great. They were fabulous. So they'll talk to me and I'll say, I've never even heard of that person. Let's have a meeting with them. Let's talk with them. See if they really do. Maybe they fit that couple's vibe. They might not fit yours, but let's chat with them and find out. And that way we can, and it's great too because you get to meet all new wedding community people. So you have that under your belt as well for the next one possibly.
So interesting. I have this picture in my mind of you as the animated bodyguard that covers the couple to make sure everything gets lined up properly, right?
Oh yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And it's funny because I work with some couples sometimes 2 years before their actual wedding date. So you create that great bond with these couples. And it's I don't want to throw my age out there or anything, but you almost take on that motherly role, right? So because you do get close with these couples and you see it go from the very beginning where they were like, I don't know what I want, to the very end where they're like, this is everything I wanted, so it's really great. It's really great.
Do you find it challenging when they just want you for the month in or the day of?
That's a little bit challenging because that's another package we have. It's called day of coordination, or we call it month of, because we take over the month before the wedding. So in all actuality, the bride and groom have planned everything. Okay, so they take care of all the entire planning process. We take over the month before. They then have to send us everything. So that's a pretty lengthy meeting when we have that first meeting 4 weeks out. It's usually a couple hours because, I have my checklist and I have to go through everything that I think they may have. You run into a couple problems unless you're like that type A, personality, that if they've forgotten something at that point, it's usually too late. I can try my magic. So, and the other thing that has happened in the past is they forget to tell me things. Like showing up to a wedding. I think it was a wedding I did with you, Christian and Shauna, at the Hacienda, and people are walking with a canoe into the tent, and I'm like, what are you doing with the canoe?
So typical of Sudbury right there.
Right. Oh, this is for the canoe bar. I'm like, nobody told me there was a canoe bar. I've planned this out. I have a floor plan and there's no canoe in my floor plan. So, we forgot to tell you, so yeah. Okay. Who's getting the ice? where's the beer coming from? You need to put stuff in the bottom of that canoe because you cannot fill a whole canoe with like 12 cases of beer, so yeah. So there's a few things that come up usually with that. I find it sometimes a little more challenging than full wedding coordination, because full wedding coordination, I have my pulse on everything, right? So I have an eye on everything and I know what's coming and what's happening. So whereas month of, you have to rely on that couple. So to kind of feed you all that information. So, and it's usually, I'm asking, you forgot to send me this. Can you send me that? Or, so, but you know what? A lot of the couples we work with, they're great. So, and I mean, they're really responsive. So it works out.
Do you find you're seeing a new trend where typically if you did the whole planning from A to Z, we'll say Z, but that there's things that they've added like that you typically you weren't doing for them before?
You know what? Couples really want to have unique weddings now. All right. They want to make it very personal to them, which is absolutely fantastic. I think that is the most fun. Make it unique to your personalities and to your families and your group that's coming. If your group that's coming are rock and rollers, well, let's add some element of that fun to your wedding, right? So sometimes they will take it upon themselves to do certain things. We have a wedding coming up in July, and I had a bride just email me just this morning, and she said, so my fireball wall came in. And I said, beg your pardon? I don't understand what you're talking about, fireball wall. So that's her seating chart. She's got little mini bottles of Fireball. I was like, okay, thank you for telling me that. I'll add it to the list. So can you send me information? Do you have a picture of that? So I'm going to add that to the floor plan. So you really, really have to be organized, and you have to keep that communication open. I have standard monthly meetings with every single one of my clients, even 2 years out, because they're scrolling constantly. They're on social media, they're on TikTok, they're on Pinterest, and they're looking at all these great ideas, and they're like, oh, I really want to do this. And I'm like, you need electricity for that, and you're having an outdoor farm wedding. Where are you going to get electricity for that? Oh, right. So, so
the voice of reason.
It is sometimes. And I hate to be a party pooper, but sometimes, you kind of have to kibosh some ideas.
That's the reality check some people need, though. I feel like, especially, and I'm going to throw this out there because this is who the podcast is specifically for, is brides and grooms, or soon to be brides and grooms. I mean, it makes no sense to over ask at a time that's too late, like you said, for one. And then also, a lot of times I'll go to these weddings and I'm the videographer, yet I'm the one doing a lot of the micromanaging of the wedding. There's nothing more stressful around. It's why I loved you so much when we met. I was like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Like my wife says the same thing. Like some people will come sometimes even with like Pinterest ideas for photography. And she has to remind these couples, it's like, gorgeous shot, gorgeous setting. But if I put both of you in that exact shot, in that exact setting, you're not the same body type. You're not the same height differences with each other. Like maybe this couple is evenly heighted with each other. It looks prettier.
Or a completely different venue.
That's
Exactly.
Right. It changes everything. And so people want these specific shots, but it doesn't make sense. And it takes that voice of reason and your expertise to kind of lay the law down.
You know what? Everything looks beautiful in Pinterest. Everything looks beautiful in TikTok. Those are like award-winning weddings. They're not going to show the, $15,000 budget backyard weddings, right? So, I mean, yes, it's great inspiration, but I tell my couples, take from that and let's mold it into something that works for you, for that venue, for that photographer, for whoever, so let's take from that and see what we can do to tweak it so that it fits all those things that you mentioned, Christian, so.
When it comes to these weddings and like where I end up in these chaotic situations, it's usually someone like a friend or like somebody else that's wedding planning that's not like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like they don't have a business.
Organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, what would be the difference in like, why would I want to take someone of your stature and your caliber of expertise versus like a friend of mine that's going to kind of take over?
You know what? And it's the same reason why I tell people, there's a little sidebar, but I tell people that if you're having friends do things at your wedding, they are essentially working your wedding. They have a role at your wedding. And if this is somebody that you were to have invited as a guest, don't make them work your wedding. And it's the same, oh, my uncle's going to DJ. Okay, well, uncle might want to go have a drink with Uncle Bob that he hasn't seen in 2 years. So I mean, whereas if you hire like an actual DJ, they stay at that booth, so, and Uncle Bob might be thinking, oh, I know, cousin John really likes Johnny Cash. I'm going to play an hour of Johnny Cash, so, and that's all fine and dandy, but Uncle Bob might not be able to finish his meal. Uncle Bob might not be able to, actually absorb and take in your beautiful day as a guest. So the same thing goes with people that they have helping out. And it's funny too, because I tell my couples, even if they have a couple little DIY things that they want to do, right? We get decorators involved and all the best vendors involved. And they say, well, my mom really wants to go and help. And I say, you know what? I want your mom to be with you. I want your mom to enjoy this experience.
Especially in this day.
Exactly. Because people are actually spending a lot of money on weddings now. You look like the trends, like last year, the average wedding in Ontario was just over $29,000. That's a big chunk of change. That's average. That's not high. That's not low. That's average. So like 120, 130 people. So, I mean, get those family members to enjoy the day, and not only that, they may not have your best interests at heart. They may be looking at something from a biased point of view, whereas I think that looks great. It may look great, but is that what the bride wants? Or so-and-so's running late. The DJ isn't here on time. Well, I just hope they show up. Whereas I'm on the phone, I have the contacts, all that stuff. So I'm making sure that these people are here on time. So, because I know them and they know me. So it's I mean, for the smaller budgeted weddings that don't have the guest count, that don't have all the different vendors that are coming in, it might be a great idea because it's a little less work involved, right? But I mean, even having said that, again, you want those people to enjoy your day. So, and you want somebody who's got an unbiased point of view, who has worked with you and knows your vision and knows what you want and knows you fought tooth and nail to get those mason jars from Michael's. You stood in line for an hour for sale, right? To get those mason jars. So you want those on those tables. So yeah, it's a great idea in theory. And I mean, but again, I understand not a lot of people have it in their budget to hire a wedding planner. So my suggestion at that point would be reach out to somebody that is organized, coworker, somebody like that, somebody that is actually going to understand you, your vision, what you want, but have that conversation with them and say, this is what I want my wedding to look like. So can you help me the day of to make sure that that's achieved?
So I find myself, that's why when we love seeing you when you're there, it's like, oh yes, because we end up taking on that role.
I can imagine, especially photographers, I find, because they need to know where things are happening. I've talked with so many photographers, they're like, oh, I've got building a timeline down to a science because I need to know where to go when to take pictures and what time things are going to happen. So like we essentially build that timeline for those couples. So, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, like that's the last thing a photographer should have to worry about. I want my photographers in the weddings I do to have that creative vision. Go do what you're professional in, So I find it a little disheartening especially for a lot of my vendors that I work with. I want you to do your job to the fullest. So let me worry about all that other stuff.
It. Well, you do it very well. She does. Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a direct example of doing it really well. I made sure that this podcast was not going to be about my negative experiences in the wedding industry. Okay, but they are going.
Hard. That's hard.
That's it, and they are going to float up sometimes. And I'm going to bring one right now. So, little entertainment value. So.
Oh boy.
I've worked a recent enough wedding over the last, let's say, 3 years. So this way no one can label who it was. Where I had to work with another photographer, not my wife, which is normally no problem. This time was an issue. Everything the bride wanted from the videography side, she wasn't getting because the photographer wasn't on the same page and on the same memo as to what was important throughout the day. It wasn't even the photographer's fault. She just didn't get the memo. You know what I mean?
The communication wasn't there.
You got it. And so it was very clear whenever because I like to touch base with the couple throughout the day, if I'm there. How are things going? Is anybody, a little bit too intoxicated? Should I watch out for anybody?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right? We got into this situation where this poor photographer just didn't know that the specific dance that they had coordinated for months before the wedding was for video purposes and not for the one shot where they're like this in a picture, frozen, right? And so things like that are where I'm like, and I literally say your name and you're not even there. I'm like, gosh, if I just said Nathalie, right? And like, so off camera, we talked earlier about how you went to Moore's. I'm going to let that, that out of the bag. You went to Moore's and you're like, the guys see me show up and they're like, oh, Nathalie's here. You're like, I'm not the, and you're not, but in this,
I'm
in
really
a slight
nice.
way,
I
we
really
need you
am.
to be there, to be that personality, maybe not the or that type A personality, but you still get things done. And I think that's so valuable in the day of, and people don't realize it until chaos is ensuing during the day. And then they're like doing what I did. Where's Nathalie? I wish I had Nathalie. So it's just, I don't know. I agree. We were talking about it before you even showed up on how we enjoy your presence at weddings, not just for your expertise, but for the fact that you keep things in order and we don't have to go outside of our expertise. We can focus on what our jobs are. And like we had this, I remember, I don't know if you remember because you've done enough weddings, but when we worked at the Hacienda, we had this conversation, you and I at the table, and you were right on the same page with me, which is why I loved it so much. And not 2 seconds later, that canoe come rolling in and you were like, no canoe. I had no idea this was going on. But it saved me a ton because there were speeches about this to be set up. My lights were set up. There were lines running where I knew people wouldn't be going, and now there was a canoe running through. So yeah, it's absolutely essential. I feel like if you can get a planner.
I'm just glad I was there so you didn't have to worry about the canoe. That's all I'm glad about.
Right, and me too. That's what I was glad about.
Imagine when she's not there and things like that happen. That's where we run into that all the time.
Yeah, it's so much chaos on the day of, and that's the one thing that, like, again, every podcast guest we've had today has that one thing in common, which is that entrepreneurial spirit and that need to always do something. We never sit down for 5 minutes to watch a movie. If we do, we pass out.
Oh my gosh, ain't that the truth?
Yes.
That's just how it rolls with us, and that's how everybody that's come through here today has felt. And it's clear. The problem is that when you're trying to wear too many hats on the day of the wedding,
That's right.
chaos ensues because you have to put something to the side. And so I find tons of value in what you do for a living. However, I would like to ask, this just again, me naiveness. What is this just a fancy name you guys give yourselves? They're like, I see certified wedding planner all the time. Like certified, like, I don't understand. Is there a school you go to for this? Like,
There is. And it's not a lot of people understand the difference, right? Because there are fabulous wedding planners. Anybody can be a wedding planner. Okay. Anybody can say, I have a business. I'm going to be a wedding planner. I've stood up in 24 weddings over my career. I'm going to be a wedding planner. And that's fabulous. The difference between a certified wedding planner and a non-certified wedding planner is education and community. I have the education behind me. I am constantly upgrading my education. I'm constantly taking courses, going to trade shows, like following all the latest trends. And because of the education I took, I now have an alumni that I belong to that I can lean on for help if I need it. The organizers that run the Wedding Planners Institute of Canada, WPIC, that I belong to, I can email them or text them and say, hey, what do you think about this? I get a response right away. So, and I have those opportunities now because I belong to that alumni. And I've been taught how to do things properly. I have an actual business license. I have actual insurance backing me. So, and I do things a specific way. Whereas other wedding planners that just, I'm going to start a wedding planning business, they may do things a certain way. I have people reach out to me, can you decorate my wedding? That's not what a wedding planner does. I will get you a great vendor to do that for you, but that's not what I do. But having said that, some of these other non-certified wedding planners, they may decide to do that. But again, every certified wedding planner that belongs to my organization does things the way I do them. So that's across the board. So there's a certain schedule that I keep. There's certain emails and questions that I have to ask. There's certain timelines that I have to follow. And I have a very, very strict code of ethics that I have to follow. Certain things like I can't receive any kickbacks from anything. Cannot do that whatsoever. So Dominique, if you say, you know what, Natalie, if your clients hire me as a wedding officiant, I'll give you $100. No, can't do that. You want to give my clients $100 off? That's fabulous, you know? And I have to conduct myself in a professional manner, in a professional way. So there's the education and again, the community. I have that community, not only that, because of the way I got my certification, I got to know all the wedding vendors, local and all around us. Because of that education, I had to reach out to them as part of my training and say, hey, I'm Natalie, you know, what do you do? You know, I might be in contact with you someday, you know, so keeping those lines of communication open. So it's just, we have that knowledge base behind us, which I think is super, super important. And like we were talking about earlier, you know, somebody who's not certified could do a fantastic job. But I always tell couples, find out what you're getting into. Find out what they do, okay? Because there are certain things I do, certain things I don't do. And I'm very clear with my clients when I tell them that. But if something happens, you know damn straight that I'm going to get that fixed. So, because I have the resources to do it.
So what happens, and it's the same situation with us, so if you're ill the day of?
I have great staff. Great staff. I have a super assistant extraordinaire, and I tell my clients, let's be honest, she actually runs the show because I would not know what to do with my schedule or my calendar without her. And she is actually in the process of getting her certification as well. But she has a leg up because she's worked in the business and she now knows exactly what's expected of her. It's the same thing too when other people go and get the certification that I got. If they're local in my community, part of my alumni and part of my code of ethics is to impart that knowledge and wisdom that I have. So I mentor them and I take them on and I train them. They shadow me at weddings, you know, and we're not talking like, you know, a weekend worth of training. Like the last one I did, I spent 2 years with her before she went like full-fledged into wedding planning. So I know now that I can send people to her if I'm booked or if I'm busy, or if they're looking for somebody else, because A, she's got the same education I have, B, she's got the same code of ethics I have, C, same training, and D, I trained her. So she's not going to do everything I did. She's going to tweak things to what she wants to do and what works for her, but I know she's got that base. So I have no problem sending people to her. Whereas these other wedding planners, they could be fantastic and great, but how do I know that they're striving to that same code of ethics? You know, so yeah, it's a little dicey sometimes, yeah.
And how do you deal with, we'll say, because I mean, obviously is stress, we'll say, or conflict with families?
You know what? I've been lucky. I have to say, I haven't really had a lot of conflict. And I don't know, I'm just kind of, I don't want to say natural at dealing with conflicts. That make me sound mean. And that's another great thing about having a wedding planner is that if the bride and groom want something, but the parents are like, oh, I don't think that's a great idea. You can say, well, the wedding planner said we have to. So, because I got big shoulders, put it on me. That's good. I can handle that, you know? So, but conflict so much, not really, you know? I mean, it's great because you, like I said, you get to know these couples and I get to know their families. So, because sometimes moms will come on Zoom meetings, or if we go to the suit stores, the parents will come, you know, and all I keep hearing is, thank God we have you, you know, because Jordan wouldn't know what to do, you know, so, and I mean, it's knock on wood when I say that. And I love working with vendors like you guys who are that emotionally invested, you know, it just takes it to that next level, you know, and I know that when this couple shows up at their wedding day, they're going to feel the love from the officiant. And they're going to look at their pictures and video and think, thank God we hired Christian. Or, you know what I mean? Like that's what I want to see. And that's what I want them to feel. Because pictures and video, that brings up all those emotions again.
Yeah.
And I want to know that the best person is on the job to create those emotions again. And a lot of times they're like, Natalie, we got our pictures. Do you want to have a showing with us? Do you want to have a viewing with us? I'm like, yes, let's do that. So we look at them together and, you know, and it's just the tears are flowing and that's, you know, that's the end goal. That's what you want.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Like I feel there's certain little perks that each one of us give to our clients that you just like, you almost have to feel out the process. Like you said, you probably more so than us get a good feeling of all the vendors and what they have to offer to the equation. So it's probably a lot easier to be that broker that be like, okay, you know who'd be a good fit for you?
Yeah.
You know, So I really never thought about it in that form. Maybe I should start pitching to Nathalie more how good I am, so she gets me some video offers.
Oh my God, that's too funny. But it just makes all the puzzle pieces fit together, right?
It does.
So I guess obviously you have your little secret preferred list of vendors.
You know what? I honestly, everybody asks me that, and it's so funny. I give my clients suggestions based on budget and based on vision and
their
based on
personality.
and based on personality. Right? So, and I do not have like one photographer that I show them every single time. I don't do that because, and not only that, I'm always on the hunt for new talent.
Yes.
Always on the hunt
yeah.
for new talent. I'm scrolling through socials constantly. If I see a new photographer pop up, I call them or I email them. Hey, can we have a quick 10-minute chat on Zoom? I'd love to meet you, get to know more about you, you know, because these photographers, they don't have stuff published in magazines. They don't have, you know, awards, but they're great photographers. And if their prices start at like $1,500, well, let's give them the opportunity. Let's try, you know? So I pitch them to my clients if they fall within that budget and if their aesthetic matches my couple. Then if they decide, yeah, let's go with it. Okay, let's try it. But I am straightforward with this couple and I tell them, I've never worked with this person. I have had a 10-minute chat. I think they would be great, but there is somewhat of a risk involved. So, you know, it's up to them to make the decision based on that. So
I find we get a lot of similarities in that way too, where like I tend to be that way too with like since COVID specifically, so many new vendors have come up, you know, because everybody was just sitting at home twiddling their thumbs saying, how do I make money?
ain't that the truth, right?
Yeah.
Now we got all these new vendors coming up and it's good to get to know them. And like you naturally meet them through weddings, but like I tend to want to meet them before the wedding so it's not in the middle of the chaos, right? And like even recently, well, this podcast specifically helped us with that. I've reached out to a lot of new, specifically the one that comes to mind is a makeup artist who's not even from here, who just moved back recently, who lived in Ottawa before. And like they're trying to get back into the wedding industry now here versus Ottawa, which is a huge change as well,
Yeah.
budget-wise,
I bet.
population-wise, right, venue-wise. So I don't know. I just find it's really important to get these different nuances from different people, even if you don't know them, having that 10-minute conversation with them, just kind of get a feel with them, or that 10-minute podcast, right? Like I've learned more today, honest to God, about the wedding vendors that like things that I had no idea that I thought I had a pretty good understanding. Everybody came here. So like
And
having
he's
that
learning,
curiosity, having that curiosity about what other people do sometimes gives you that deep dive. It's why I love this podcast format. It gives you the opportunity to see a little bit more about what the vendor's offering you in personality versus services, you know?
Right.
Like getting to shoot the shit with you for 20 minutes, you know, and getting a better feel for how your process works gave me a better feel of how you are just as a person.
Right.
You know, so it's just so much nicer to see what we are willing to offer the industry, that we're not tired of the industry, because I find that also highlights itself quick in vendors.
It does. It does. Burnout's a real thing. Yeah. You know, because there's so many highs and lows, right? That's what I find anyways.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I have certain vendors that when I work with them, like, hey boss, how's it going, boss? You know, it's like see that couple with the white dress and the suit? They're your boss, you know. So they're the bosses, you know. I might be working vicariously through them, but working with vendors, and it's great because, like I said before, we have such a small vendor community here. It's fantastic because everybody knows, I know how you work. I'm going to let you do your thing. But vendors come to me, Nathalie, what time is the cake cutting? Or what time is this? Or, you know, but working with vendors, like even like something as simple as, well, it's not simple to create a timeline, but creating a timeline. I am not going to be the one to say, Dominique, you're doing a ceremony at 3:00. I'd like you to show up at noon. That's not my call, you know, or Christian, we have 8 hours of videography planned. I think that I would like you doing this, and this. No, I'm going to have those conversations with you guys and say, okay, we have 8 hours of video planned. So I'm thinking 12 to 8. What do you think? You say, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. What do you want to do in those 12 hours? You know, this is where the groom's going to be. This is where the bride's going to be. So I don't make these decisions arbitrarily and put these on this timeline. There are certain things that I do, obviously, you know, like if the bride wants it, she wants dinner at 6:00 or, you know, stuff like that. So, but again, those are conversations that we have together as vendors leading up to that date. So, and because a lot of, I have had new vendors say, oh, well, I have my own timeline. That's fantastic. Share that timeline with me. Yeah. Okay. and let's incorporate it into the day of timeline. You know, and if there's any questions that I have, let's have those discussions. Let's work that out. You know, because this has to be fluid for every vendor involved. I know that you're there thinking of, and rightfully so, your role in that wedding as a wedding vendor. But I'm thinking of everybody's role that day as a wedding vendor. So we have to make that work and we have to make it fluid. So let's have those discussions. You know, I mean, and I think I was saying earlier how I was dealing with a vendor who was like, well, I don't think dinner should be at 6 o'clock. It should be at 6:45. Unfortunately, that's not your call to make. So it's not my call to make either. You know, I've discussed this with the couple, with the venue. So we have to do what you need to do in that time frame. So let's work together and let's make that happen. And you know what? For the most part, everybody is so good. So good. I want to show up that
anyone
wedding
who
day.
loves their job, it makes it happen.
You know,
I think that,
and I love seeing my fellow wedding vendors in their element. Yeah. I love it. I can tell when you're getting a feeling up there and it's getting emotional and you're feeling all those feels, you know, and I can tell when he's on the ground with his leg up in the air and, you know, like, and trying to get that great shot that he's feeling it too, you know, as I'm in the background sobbing my eyes out, right? So, but that's when I know everything is clicked and everything is meshed together. So, and I hope that that's something that I give to all my couples, you know, because it's not just the wedding planner that makes the wedding happen. It's everybody involved. I might coordinate it all, but you know what? I can't coordinate a great wedding unless I have great wedding vendors that are willing to work with me. So kudos to you guys and all wedding vendors out there.
well,
honestly.
we love working with you. So you make that very easy. So
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. So, because that's the goal, right?
yes.
That's the goal.
So I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute if you'd like to try it out. You're going to look in this camera specifically, and you're going to tell them how we could get a hold of you.
You can visit our website at www.blacktieweddings.ca, or you can email me, Nathalie, Nathalie, at blacktieweddings.ca, or you can call or text at 705-662-8830, and we can start the process and have that first meeting and get to know each other.
Okay, thanks, Natalie.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast. Love it. Love it. Can we do this like once a week?
Yeah,